Hi, I'm Addie, and welcome to Over a Cup of Coffee,
the podcast where we talk about everything community all over a cup of coffee. So we're glad you're here to join us. Hi, this is Jamie, and welcome to Over a Cup of Coffee, the podcast where we talk about everything positive in the community and how you can build positive community no matter where you live. So welcome back, and we are excited because we have an announcement about we are officially a podcast.
Yes, we are. So we are now listed on most podcast listening sites, and I have to pull it up because there's so many of them. Buzzsprout.com is our main site. And so you can go directly there and listen to every episode. If that's not one you want to use, we have Podcast Index, Deezer, Player FM, Listen Notes, Podchaser, Spotify, which is a popular one, Amazon Music, Podcast Addict, and Pocket Casts. And so I'm just waiting on approval for Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts.
Wow.
Yeah, and iHeart.
Wow.
So, yeah.
That's a lot.
It is a bunch, yes. So excited about it.
That is big news. And so for people listening, what this whole podcast is about is two friends who, over a cup of coffee, came up with the idea to do a podcast called Over a Cup of Coffee, which is about a half an hour long every time, just the amount of time it would take if you met a friend for coffee and you were talking about whatever it is, friends talk about, which is a lot of things. So we do also both love our community here in Farmington, New Mexico, and we're both very involved in the community. So we also talk about what's happening in our community, but then also how these topics could be applicable to any community anywhere, and how as citizens of our communities, it's up to us to make where we live the best place that it possibly can be.
Yes.
So that is the point, right?
Yes. Yeah.
So we're going to talk about, today, we're talking about theater. And we have a very special guest. Randy West is the Farmington Civic Center Supervisor.
Well done.
Thank you. Thank you. And again, we live in Farmington, New Mexico, which is in the northwest corner of the state of New Mexico, in an area well known as the Four Corners.
Right. Yep.
And so we are blessed and fortunate enough to have a really robust and professional theater opportunity
right here. Yeah.
So, Randy, I wanted to just give you an opportunity to talk about, now that we're done with 2020, let's put it in the books, wrap it up, sign it off, and say we're done. We're not going back. So can you just talk a little bit about what we can look forward to here in the Farmington community with theater that's going to be happening?
Well, actually, we're doing a summer season, a condensed summer season. We happen to have a variety of venues for a medium-sized town, and one of them is an outdoor amphitheater. And so what we're opening first, because it is outdoors, is the outdoor amphitheater. It's called the Lions Wilderness Outdoor Amphitheater, and they've been doing productions there for many years, and it seats about 500. And we're hoping that we'll be at least 75%, maybe more, of an audience with this summer. So the city called me and said, what can you put out at Lions Wilderness? And I said, well, what do you want? And they said, well, how about some concerts or something? So on June 26th, we're bringing in a great group called the Doo-Wah Riders. And the Doo-Wah Riders have been around for years. They're a 5-piece, high-energy, family-oriented country western band. And they do everything from the Bonanza theme to the Lone Ranger theme to standard country western.
I love the Lone Ranger
Ghost
theme.
Riders in the Sky. And they're a really high-energy, fun group. And that's on June 26th at 7:30 at Sandstone. We call them both things. We call it Lions Wilderness Amphitheater, and we also call it Sandstone, because Sandstone has been the production company that's been there for a lot of years. So in our community, they kind of mean the same thing. And so it's easier to say Sandstone.
Yeah. But isn't that too because it's unique setting? It's
absolutely.
I mean, and for people who aren't
into
here,
the sandstone around
right.
that location. Yeah.
So it's one of these great where you take amazing outdoor
landscapes,
and you combine it with theater or productions, and it's just such a great venue.
It's funny that I was raised in a small town in California called Hemet, California. Hemet is the home of the Ramona Outdoor Pageant.
I've been.
And it's been
I've
there.
seen
Really?
it. I grew up. I lived in San Bernardino till I was 6.
Yeah.
My parents took me to see that, and I remember crying. That one scene where they're on the rocks, and I remember crying and sobbing as a little girl. So I've been to that pageant a number of times. So I know what you're talking
That's
about.
a big outdoor theater where they have a huge hacienda, and they have horses and all kinds of stuff.
Right.
And ours is a little smaller than that, but I was raised in a community where an outdoor theater was an important part of that community. And so when I got here and they said, well, we have to take you out to Lions Outdoor Amphitheater, I said, wow, how cool is that? And it's not just outdoors, it's outdoors with this background of sandstone. And in front of it, you can do everything from host the doo-wah riders to do a whole production of Mamma Mia, which is what we're doing in July. July 8th through August 1st, Thursday through Sunday nights at 7:30, we're doing Mamma Mia with Four Corners Musical Theater, which is our newly founded professional musical theater company. So this year it's Sandstone and Four Corners together doing Mamma Mia in July. And then on the first weekend of August 7th, we're bringing in another great group they're actually from New Mexico, Artrageous, and we had them last year, and they combine live painting, so the creative arts, with the performing arts, and in front of you, they in a 90-minute show, they paint 5 portraits. And they're huge. They're like 5 by 8 portraits. And as they're painting, you don't have any idea what it is until the last 15 seconds. And suddenly you go, oh my gosh, that's John Lennon, or it's Ronald Reagan. I mean, it's somebody that you immediately go, everybody gets it in that same magical moment. But around that, they're singing and they're dancing, and they also, another totally family-friendly event, but they're also teaching. They pass out glow sticks and things at the beginning, and with the music, they're combining movement with rhythm and music. So its basis is in all kinds of the arts. And when we had them last year at intermission, I had 3 middle school teachers come up to me and say, oh my gosh, this should be just the best introduction ever to the creative and performing arts. And will you bring them back? And I said, of course I will. And it just so happened that we were getting to know each other, and they're only 2.5 hours from Farmington, and they don't have a home city. They aren't tied to a particular city. And I said, well, we'd love to be a home. We'd love to be the place that you come to try out things to see if it works, and then they go out and do big national tours. So that's the summer season.
Well, and
super cool.
That's 3 amazing productions, events, and that's just here in our community. Are we unusual? Is Farmington unusual in that the size of our community, which is roughly 40,000 for Farmington? Now, San Juan County is what, 100,000?
Yeah, a little over 100,000.
So is that unusual to have this caliber of theater in a community this size, or?
I think it's hard to generalize. I mean, there are certainly clusters of communities that all have terrific theater. I know that I was raised in Southern California, and in that small town of Hemet, actually, my dad was the high school baseball coach at the older high school for 28 years. And then we all went to that high school, graduated, went off to college. And then my sister came back, and she was the theater teacher at the new high school for 30 years.
Wow.
So in the town I grew up, the baseball stadium in the old high school is named for my father.
Oh, wow.
And the theater in the new high school is named for my sister. And that's kind of the whole West family there. It's kind of raised in a baseball family, and then kind of in 8th grade, they came in to band, and my best friend and I were both drummers in the middle school marching band, and they came in looking for boys that could play an instrument for a community and high school combined production of The Music Man.
Oh,
and
fun.
my best friend said, well, I'll do it if you'll do it. And I'd sung in church choir, and I obviously played in the band, and I went in, and when we got there, they found out that both of us could sing. I mean, so rather than just being in the boys band thing at the end, they asked us if we would play Towns Boys in the show, so we got to be in the rest of The Music Man. And before the show ever opened, I went home, and I said to my family, I said, this is what I'm going to do for the rest of my life.
Oh, isn't that
And
great?
I knew in 8th grade.
Isn't that great to
so
find
cool.
that passion or what you love early on? And I mean, there's something to be said for coming to it later as well.
Right,
but when,
right. To be able to run with it at such a young age and have your family support you through that is super cool, especially coming from a baseball family, because I know sports. My son was an athlete his entire life, and I really do wish that I could have pushed creativity a little bit more for him, but we were in such a tight baseball community, and I grew up in the arts. I grew up singing and performing. I was in one of the very first productions out at the Amphitheater when I was 14 years old.
Really?
Yeah, it was called Christ the Rock. I played a leper, of all
There
things.
you go.
I've come a long way.
wow.
Yeah, so, and then
Played a leper.
I did. And even the Totot Theater here downtown, I played in Oklahoma, 2 seasons of that when I was 10 and 12 years old.
Well, as both of you know, my wife is been in the arts her whole life as well, and she's actually playing again. Last time I did Mamma Mia, she was Donna, and she's doing Donna again this summer.
she?
So she's in Mamma Mia, and her name's Margaret Clare. But she and I have been in the arts now most of our whole adult lives, and we say to people that whatever is a young person's passion. I mean, I certainly was around a lot of people that it was sports because I grew up in a sports family. But for the people that it's not sports, it could be the arts, and whatever it is, or it could be horseback riding.
Right.
I mean, but if there's something that they find that turns them on, I
Right.
mean, that just
Lights
gives
that
them a
fire,
focus.
yeah.
I mean, with me and the arts. When I found it in high school, I wanted to be in everything I could be in, and be in band and sing in choir. And basically, my parents said, Randy, there's nothing about you that's below average. So as long as you always can maintain at least a B average and do all of this, you can do all of this. But the minute you fall below a B average, we got to start cutting back the other stuff that you're doing. And so there were 3 of us. There were me and my 2 younger sisters, and they were really the bright ones. I think they graduated 4.0 and 3.9 out of high school. I graduated 3.5, 3.7 maybe. But that was the thing.
Right.
I mean, if I wanted to do all this stuff that I loved, I had to do academics as well.
Yeah.
And that's not unusual in a family. I
Right.
mean,
Right.
if there's something that you find that is your passion, whatever that is, your parents turn right around and say, yes, we'll support you doing this,
Right.
but you also have to do well in school.
Right.
And actually, there are many, many studies that say that, a student that finds whatever, it could be playing the acoustic guitar.
Right.
I mean, whatever that thing is that they find probably is going to enhance everything else that they do.
Right.
And so I'm somebody that I hope that people that know me would tell you that I hope there isn't a snobby artistic bone in my body. That I don't think theater should be an ivory tower. I think theater should embrace everybody, and it's a little bit of a challenge. People know what's expected of them to go to a movie.
Right.
They get a little scared about theater. I mean, going to a concert. I mean, what is the expectation? And we need to make sure that the expectation is we want you in the building, and we want to share whatever this is with you, and we want you to walk out feeling like that it was a 2 hours of your life that was not wasted.
That was well spent.
That you're enriched in some way.
So can you talk a little bit, I mean, I think you've touched on it, but just about why theater, you just kind of touched on a little bit, but why theater is important. How does it build community? How does it, it interfaces with school, it interfaces with bringing tourists to your community, especially during summer. Many places do have outdoor summer theater they use as part of their marketing for people to come visit. But why is it important? Why since Shakespeare, or before that, why since the Greeks, not we, I'm not an ancient Greek, but why since then, when they were doing theater then, why is it important? Is it storytelling? Why does it matter?
It's a wide, I mean, it would, you could do Post-it notes and it would cover this entire table for what are the advantages of bumping into the creative or performing arts. But to just pick a couple of things, well, certainly to the Greeks it was education.
Okay.
Because many people could hear a story and then continue to tell that story, then could sit down and read that story. And that certainly was the case. It was your oral tradition was passed through theater. But today, if you get involved in theater, we do a program. For example, well, when I was lucky enough in Fairfield, Iowa, I was asked to found a theater, and there is a 525-seat theater in Fairfield, Iowa, and it's named the Stephen Sondheim Center for the Performing Arts, because I was lucky enough 35 years ago to get to do a project with Stephen Sondheim, and he's been an adult mentor to me my whole life. He's a very giving, loving man, and is given to the arts in so many ways. But when he gave his name to that theater and we founded a professional theater in Fairfield, I thought that just doing that, and I was bringing in big names from New York to perform in those shows, that was enough, and it was part of it. But when we took that and then took the community and involved the community in what we were doing in terms of starting to have the talent I brought in mentor the local talent, and started to do workshops and seminars for the local people, that sunk the roots of that program into the community. And we might have them in the summer. We might work with them and mentor them in the way we did theater in the summer. But then when they went back, they took everything they learned in the summer back to their school or back to their community theater. And so it just spread throughout our whole general area. And not only is that increasing the level of musical theater, but once those people are around other people that are working at their full potential, I mean, that one of the big things that happens, and I think you'll see it in Mamma Mia, because Mamma Mia has 14 hired, jobbed-in professional people that do this for a living year-round, and 14 people from Farmington that are a variation of college students or local people that are going to spend 2 weeks learning Mamma Mia and then perform it for 4 weeks.
I want to do it.
I know, I do
wanna
too.
do it.
I love Mamma Mia. It's one of my favorite
we
stories.
We should see if we can somehow be in it one night or 2 weeks or something.
You should just
Yeah.
job
It
in.
would be a
Addie and
blast.
Jamie, oh my gosh,
Yeah.
it'd be so fun.
But
Yes,
it
me
does
too.
go out. It goes out, and then the other thing is when they're unlocking potential is the biggest thing we do in the summer, because the people that we job in, they're working at such a high level, and then the other people come in and they have innate talent and they've done a lot of work. But well, first of all, when I teach directors how to direct, and I had some directors when I was growing up that just scared the living snot out of me. And I think that's totally counterproductive, because you're in a creative field where you want them to risk. You want them to risk enough to be the best that they can be. And if they're afraid to make a mistake, they'll only work in their comfort zone. They'll only do what they know they can do perfectly. Well, if you only do what you know you can do perfectly, you'll never risk enough to get close to your potential.
Don't we do that in life too?
Absolutely.
We all do that.
Well,
We're afraid of
box ourselves
actually
in.
my point. Is once you get in that environment where you feel you can risk, and even by failing, you learn something. If you make a mistake, I don't consider a mistake a mistake. Sometimes you learn as much from a mistake, and as a director, I can say, okay, what were you trying to do there? And you can tell me, and I can say, well, why don't we take that instinct, because you always trust your instinct, and let's take it in this, let's add this to it and see if that makes it work. And so it's a creative process of communication between a director, a choreographer, a musical director, and that cast, and that's an exchange of energies. And then once we take that, we exchange that energy with an audience, and that's why we're different from a movie.
Right.
A movie's always the same. We sense exactly who we're performing with and to, and there's that exchange of energy that is not duplicated in another art form. And so they take that thing, that unlocking of potential, and if they go back, they suddenly become the most confident, bombastic attorney in town, or they suddenly they become a salesperson, they become a whatever they want to become. It's with that center of knowing that they can unlock this potential in them anytime they want, because they've seen it. And that's what we do. I think in the summer we unlock potential.
That's great.
I love that.
And I know it gives us goosebumps. But I before we get to our book reviews, which is what we're going to move into next, I want to thank you for what you've brought to the community.
Yes.
And I'm sorry the year of COVID with all the potential. Talk about potential. Just got put on hold. It's all still there. Now we can move forward. But I think you have brought a lot to the community.
Thank you.
And
so much.
And we
Thank you.
have quality theater here, and that's one of the messages we wanted to talk about, is that it is something that builds into positive communities. And
Well,
so
in Farmington, there is a very fine community theater, the theater ensemble. There's a lot of really fine educational theater, everything from elementary schools, middle schools, high schools, the college, and hopefully we all work together when we get together.
Yeah.
There's a good, lively mix of theater here. Let me just say that there is a tremendous deal. It's called a Flex Pass, and if you go to www.fmtn, it's kind of like Farmington with no vowels, fmtn.org/shows, you can see Do All Riders, Mamma Mia, and Outrageous, and there's a Flex Pass to get all three shows for a deal that is so good I can't even tell you here.
well, then you'll have to go to the website.
Yes,
or
exactly.
watch our Facebook.
really great.
Yes.
So, Addie,
Yeah.
I am going to let you. I did my book last time first, so I'm going to let you do your book this time first.
Okay.
So,
great.
what's your book?
And yes. So my book is Untamed by Glennon Doyle, and she is a big recovery advocate, for women in recovery, and that's any kind of recovery. It's not just substance abuse or alcoholism. It's recovery from emotional toxicity or stagnation in your life. She's one of the token phrases that came from this book is, we can do hard things. And I know you follow me on social media, and a lot of my hashtags that I'll use when I'm giving an update of where I'm at in my recovery or something I've overcome. Speaking of overcoming and figuring out to do things differently or open my perspective, this book, being Untamed, talks about how she kind of relinquished the shell she was stuck in and regenerated and regrew herself into the woman she always dreamed she could be. Early on during the pandemic in 2020, when I ordered the book, it was just too much because there was so many emotions tied to what was happening at the time. So I came back to it this past January. And I literally couldn't put it down. And it opened my eyes to how much growth I did during a time when the world was in pause. And it allowed me to look inside deeper and change so many of the things that I didn't quite give myself time to change and grow with, because we're in constant motion, having theater and having all of these events happen. And so it gave me some quiet time to really sit down and reflect. And excellent book, Untamed, Glennon Doyle. And I brought my mug that, if you're just listening, you can't see it, but it says Namaste Sober. And so, I was just at a party on Sunday, Jamie and I both, and it was really nice because people know my journey and nobody pushes me. Why don't you drink? Why don't you do this? It's just, I got to just come and have fun and talk to everybody, and it was great. And so that's kind of why I'm out and open about it, so that anybody from any walk of life can be involved in anything they want to be.
What was the name of the book again?
Untamed.
And who is it by again?
Glennon Doyle.
Glennon Doyle.
Yes.
So my book is one of my favorites. I actually brought it today. I'm going to show the camera. This is one of my favorite books ever. It's called A Gentleman in Moscow by Amor. I'm not sure if he says his last name Toles or Tolles, but anyway, I highly recommend this book. I've actually read it twice, and it was recommended to me by somebody who went to high school that I was in theater with, because I did a lot of theater. In fact, we were in Alice in Wonderland together. My friend David recommended this book, and it is, I thought, a perfect read for, during the pandemic, but any other time. The writing is so witty and so well done, and the main character is just, you just really find yourself so involved in his experience. And I won't go into it too much because I hate to give away the plot of the book,
Right.
but I would highly recommend this book. It's called A Gentleman in Moscow, and it is an enjoyable read, but I mean, if I've read it twice, and I'll probably read it again, if not 4 or 5 times. My husband is reading it now, but just a great book. So we want to ask you, Randy, before we finish up here, we've got like 2 or 3 minutes. What is your favorite book, or what book would you recommend?
Well, my favorite book of all time is The Once and Future King by T.H. White. I read it the first time I was cast in a professional production of Camelot, and I was going to be playing Sir Dindadin, and it is the book that Camelot is based on. And I've read it many times. Every time I get ready to direct Camelot again, I read it. And right before we got shut down for COVID, there's a brand new version of Camelot that we were going to do in Farmington. And if all things sort out, we're still hoping to do that in October here. It takes the whole Camelot story and reduces it to 10 people. And it's a great telling of the Camelot story. But I would, if you are interested in Camelot, the Once a Future King it's got everything. It's got knights and romance, and it's funny, and it's a good. T.H. White wrote it right at about the time of World War I, so it was not written centuries ago, and it actually breaks. He uses words that didn't exist in the time of King Arthur.
Okay.
I mean, so it's a nice,
Makes
easy
it an
read.
easier read, yeah.
Right.
And it's not something like Les Morte d'Arthur, which is a little more, as they say, heavy sledding. The Once a Future King is just a good, easy, fun read.
Well, thank you. I'm going to add
Yeah.
that to my list.
I know, me too.
That's why I like the book reviews, because we've talked about this. We both love to read. I tend to read more fiction, and you tend to read more
Yeah.
nonfiction or
Right.
autobiographies. But I love seeing hearing what people are reading and why. So, but
Yeah,
thank
it's
you,
like, what
Randy.
sparks them?
Yeah. So did you
Yeah.
Thank you, guys.
Yeah, thank you. I get to talk to Randy a lot. We work together often, and it's just been a pleasure. Like I told you a couple weeks ago when we met, and always and everybody always asks me at the hotel, "What's Randy doing? Have you talked to Randy? What's going on with Randy?" So,
Well, again, the caliber of theater that you've brought. And
Thank
so
you.
how do Addie and I audition for Mamma Mia? Let's get to the real, I want to get to the really important thing.
Gonna
How do
lean on
Addie
me.
and I get to be
Can you
in
text us?
Mamma Mia? Because I see that as an absolute must
I
for
know.
our
I think
summer.
we could sell out that night.
I
There
think
you
we would. I think we would. But So again, such big news with all the podcast sites.
Right.
And I know you
So
worked hard on that.
excited.
So,
and then Greg Allen, who produces this for us and with us, he sent me over the graphics I needed for some of those other larger named podcast sites, and it worked beautifully. So they should be up within the next few days too.
And that's true. We should always mention we're not doing this alone and
No.
setting all this equipment up. So Greg with San Juan Safe Communities is helping with us. So it's all, again, this podcast is all about enjoying a cup of coffee and talking about everything that has to do with community, building community. And that doesn't matter whether you live in Farmington, New Mexico, or wherever
East
you live, in
Kansas,
Kansas or Wetumpka, Alabama. I mean, wherever you live, it's your responsibility to make that community a better place and to support the things that your community has, such as theater or sports or horseback riding or whatever it is, to support those so that they'll stay in your community. So, and we have a lot of really fun guests coming up, so we'll talk about that on our Facebook page and make some announcements. But thanks for joining us.
Sure, my
Thanks,
pleasure.
Randy. All right, thanks.